Well, once again, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to session 6 of the 9th annual academic symposium here at Eastern Nazarene College. Our session this afternoon features 2 students from our Science and Technology division. We have 2 papers. The order of the presentations is going to be reversed here from what you may have seen on the program. We trust you'll all be flexible with us on this point. But first up today, we have Claire Kayihura, who is a senior computer engineering major, talking about an app that she has developed for budgeting. Our paper is entitled Manage Budgeting on the Fly, a software mobile application for easy and comprehensive management of personal budget. And then following Claire's presentation, we're going to be hearing from Katie Sauter, who is also a senior and a computer science major. And Katie's paper is entitled A Full Stack Phone Application Aiding the Advancement of Student Engagement. Both Claire and Katie, as I mentioned, are seniors. From what they tell me, they're both out on the open job market. So if you have any leads, I'm sure that they would love to hear from you about those things. For those of you who may not have been able to join us in any of our previous sessions, these Zoom webinars work a little differently than the Zoom calls at which you have all likely become experts over the last 3 or 4 weeks. But you can't, as participants or as attendees, you can see the presenters, but you can't see the other people who are here in the session with us. But I did want to let you know that there are some ways that you can interact with the audience as well as with our presenters. So there is a chat box that is available, and you should be able to send messages that'll be visible to the audience or to particular panelists or to all the panelists. There's also a Q&A box, and I would especially encourage you to use that Q&A box if you have a kind of narrow or specific question that you would like to direct to one person, or if you just think of a question that maybe you want to have answered after a presentation ends, or if you're just thinking of something in the middle. But certainly encourage everybody to use the chat. In fact, if you want to take a moment right now and wish Claire and Katie good luck, I'm sure that they would appreciate that. And if we have time, there is also an option that'll allow you to raise your hand, and then we can actually allow you to ask questions out loud. So we'll see how we do in terms of time and what seems like the best option at that time. But Claire, I believe that without any further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. McCoy. My name is Claire Kayihura, and I'm a candidate for Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering. Today, I'm going to be presenting my senior project titled Manage Budgeting on the Fly. It is a mobile application that you can download on your device and be able to manage your budget. What motivated me to do this project is when I first started college, I wanted to make sure that I would be able to afford tuition. So I would just sit down. I was working at the time. I would just sit down with my bank statements and my calculator and try to figure out. And then I went on to try to put all the transactions into the Excel sheet so that I can track it over a period of time. But all of that was taking so much time. It was time consuming. So I started looking into other apps that were out there, but they were, some of them were expensive and not easy to use. So I thought if I can create something that is simple and free, that it will be helpful to students or anybody else who doesn't want to pay for a budgeting app. Goals for my app were to be able to track expenses over a period of time with the classification method so that you can avoid overspending and also be able to save for the future and to know your financial schedule. The system requirements that I put in place for my app shall report transactions from bank accounts, transactions shall list expenses, transactions shall list income, app shall classify the transactions into unique categories, app shall have a manual setting menu for category, app shall provide unique reports, app shall require access authentication authorization for security purposes. So in the process of developing an app, you have a front end and the back end. A front end, it's what the client interact with, it's what you see on the device. And in creating that, I used Visual Studio with the framework of FLUTTER, and FLUTTER uses Dart language as a programming language. I also used Xcode. I was programming on my Mac computer so that I can access the simulator, iOS simulator, and Xcode uses Swift as a programming language. On the back end, which consists with database and server, I use the platform Firebase, and Firebase has multiple functions in which there is authentication, there is storage, and authentication is where the user create an account or be able to access the app. So I use a NoSQL database, which saves data in a JSON format. I stored everything that related to my app in Cloud Firestore. And these are the main programs that I used. It's a detail of what I just went through in the previous slide. So Flutter is an open source UI software development. It is used to develop application for Android and iOS and websites. It was developed in C++, but it uses Dart language, which I had to learn to be able to develop this app. It has a cool feature of hot reload, which helps the developer to see the changes they're making in real time. I took a snipped screenshot from the actual code, which you can see on the right side to show you how it looks like. I used the service played, which is the easiest way for the user to connect their bank accounts to an app. And it is a natural language processing, which is a branch of artificial intelligence. And the way it uses it is it uses APIs to retrieve data from bank accounts and return them as a JSON response so that the data can be sent between the server and the client. In the backend, I used Firebase, which is a database that holds server, APIs, and data in the cloud. I used it for authentication, also to manage and synchronize data in real time. And the way I did it, I created and registered my project in Firebase, and then I configured the Firebase in Xcode directory, which you can see on the right side. And then I added SDKs in the Flutter. So the architecture or the features of my app. So the way it would work, you would have a phone, you would download the app, the budget app on your phone, and then you will create an account if you don't have one. If you have one, you can just log on to it. And the next page you'll see, it will be banks all over America. And then you will select your bank, and then you will put your credentials. And that way it will synchronize with my budget app to retrieve all the data from the bank. And then the next page you'll see our category, those 5 categories, which are income, expenses, reports, alert, and savings. When you click on income, you will see those 3 subcategories: paychecks, which is where all your paychecks are going, and properties, if you have one, investment, if you have been investing in other companies. When you click on expenses, you will see housing, grocery, transportation, charity, entertainment / restaurant. So if you're renting or if you're paying a mortgage, you will see it up there. And if for the groceries, you will see the expenses that you have made in groceries department. Transportation, if you are taking the bus or if you're driving, so that would mean like gas or parking, all that you will see that in transportation. Charity, if you're giving to charity, you will see what you have given so far. Same as entertainment and restaurant. The other three features are saving, alert, and reports. If you're trying to save towards buying a house or a car or a trip, you will see it over there. And alert, you have menu settings, which helps you to set limits so that you know how much you don't want to go over in your expenses. And when you overspend on that particular place that you have said, you have put limits in place, it will send you an alert. Reports, you can do reports by time. Say, let's say if you want to do a report for maybe 3 months, a period of 3 months, you can select 3 months, maybe May, June, July, and you see how much you have spent there. By categories, let's say if you want to see how much you're spending in grocery and transportation, you can just select those two categories and see how much you're spending on that. So this was my final product. On the left side, you can see the UI, which is what you see when you open the app. You see the income, as I was saying, expenses, alert, and savings, and reports. And on the right side, that was the final product of the database. As I was saying, you can see the authentication database. It has multiple functions, but most of what I use was the authentication database and storage. This is kind of demo of what my app looks like. When you first get in, you can create an account, you can log on and then go onto the bank links, and you can select your bank and put your credentials. And then the next page, you will see the income, those 5 categories I was saying. And when you click on income, you can see the detailed a little bit more. As you see there, paychecks, properties, investment, so as expenses. For the other 3 features also, you can see over there, we have menu settings, overspending, how much you've saved to buy a house, and the reports. One more page that I felt like it was important was the overspending. You can see it in alert. I have overspending page over there, but also I put it outside so that you will know how much you're overspending, which is really an important thing to know. If you have put in place limits on your account, you can see how much you're overspending on things that you have already put limits on. In conclusion, I was able to create budget app with Visual Code and Xcode. I created it with that language in a framework of FLUTTER. The lines of code was over 1,500. And in the end, I was able to create an app that can improve your way of living. Future work, I would like to work on limitations, add more categories, and be able to implement it on Android and web. I would like to thank God, of course, for guiding me, for protecting me, or for giving me the strength to do this project. I would like to thank Dr. Conley for helping me all these years I've been at UNC, for encouraging me when I needed it. And also I would like to thank my manager at MGH, Del Enos, for helping me changing the schedule so that I can be able to come to school. I would like to thank my family and friends for the support. And any questions?
Thank you, Claire. Dr. Scott has asked you a question. and she's wanting to know what kinds of security measures you have built into the architecture of your app, and to what, yeah, is it, how does that get accomplished?
So like I was saying, the database that I use was Firebase. It's a service from Google. And I didn't work on that so much just because the service in Firebase, they provide all sort of measure of security for server and how you interact with it. So mostly I integrated my app with Firebase just because it has a lot of security that you can put in place and you can just choose whichever you want.
Great. Yeah. DDOC is asking if the app is available for ENC students or for anyone else. And I was going to ask you, Claire, like, are you using this app yourself, and has it been functioning smoothly for you? If you have,
I have tested it, but I haven't put it out just because I need to work on it a little bit more. Yeah.
Do you have a goal for when it'll be available for DDOC to use?
I'm projecting like in 1 month. In 1 month. Just
in 1 month.
One more month
right.
to make it a little bit prettier.
Yeah. I wondered, Claire, if just to know a little more about sort of what motivated you. You talked a little bit about this, and I think one of the things that you raised earlier was, were existing apps sufficiently versatile or capable of doing what you wanted them to do? So what were some of the shortcomings of other apps that you felt like needed to be addressed, or just tell us a little more about sort of the context for this.
So first of all, other apps that are out there you have to buy. So it wasn't making sense for me as a student who's trying to to save, to go out there and buy another app just to be able to save. So I thought if I could do something really simple, and most of them, they're used for like big companies and a little bit more. It's not as simple as for like someone like a student who doesn't need a lot of stuff. So I felt like it would be like, it's not, mine is not, it's just adding on what's out there to have more choices.
And it makes all the sense in the world to offer a free app for people who would like to save money and manage their budget. Yeah. Do we have any other questions from our audience today? Is there anything else that people would like to ask Claire to add or to clarify? Well, if people do have any other questions, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A box, and then Claire will be able to answer you directly. So if you think of anything else that you'd like to hear from her, you always have that option. But Claire, thank you so much for your presentation. And Katie, I believe that we are over to you.
All right, thank you, McCoy. Great job, Claire. I'm going to share my screen.
Katie, before you start, I suppose since you asked me to check, did you remember to share your audio?
I just did it. I think we're good.
Okay.
All right, let me know though if you can't hear it when I do that. Okay, hi everyone. My name's Katie. I am a candidate for a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. And today we'll be talking to you about my senior project called the Full Stack Phone Application Aiding the Advancement of Student Engagement. So you're probably wondering what exactly that means. So with my application, my project, I wanted to solve the problem of, at least here at ENC, we don't really have a common platform for students to see all of our campus events and activity, to collaborate academically with other students, and to view locations where activities are occurring for students who may be less familiar with campus or for potential incoming students. Right now we have a lot of places where we advertise, we do flyers, we do Instagram posts, Snapchat, but there isn't just one common platform that students can go to say, these are all the events happening in the next few weeks, the next few months. and here's how I can plan to go to them. And because of that, I think a lot of our events do go underattended because people either don't know about them or wasn't able to find out about them. So the solution I came up with was designing a phone application that would allow students to easily connect with each other, that would aid in student engagement and in turn academic success. It's actually been proven that when students are actually able to engage with each other and their campus better, they actually do better academically. So an application like this could really help our community life and also our academic life here at ENC. So in this application, I wanted students to be able to create events and then make posts about them to kind of promote the events. View event locations for students who are less familiar with our campus. I know our campus is small, so a lot of students are, but there are, incoming students, transfers, freshmen who aren't sure about where things are. Place for students to create private discussions with each other, and a place for students to view our cafeteria meal schedule. So some of the requirements of my application were that students would be able to create an event that could be posted to the homepage of the app, allow students to create posts about specific events, allow students to collaborate in a group, and then have a campus map so students could go there and locate events in student groups. So there's multiple ways to create a phone application. There's like drag and drop apps where you can create the UI and then it creates the backend code for you, or there's apps where you can create the backend code and it will create the user interface for you. But I decided to create a full stack application, which basically means I developed both the backend and front end up from scratch by myself, mostly for learning purposes, but also so that I could kind of manipulate what I wanted in this application. So the backend is basically a program that remains in the background, which contains all of the data of the application, and the front end is the part of a website that the user sees on the screen and interacts with. So for my application, in my backend, here's kind of a diagram showing my application. You have the backend, the front end. I have three major parts of my backend, which were the database, the ORM, and the server. And for my front end, I have the user interface. So here's kind of a more in-depth picture of my application. You have the application at the top, backend, front end, and the major components like I just talked about, the database, ORM, server, user interface. In the purple, I have the main software language, main software that I used for each one of these components. The yellow is the primary software language I used. And then in green, I have any additional software. So I'm going to kind of go over all of this from left to right just to kind of make it less confusing, help you understand. So database, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically just an organized collection of data for a system. It basically stores the data behind an application so it can be accessed by your server and user interface. So I used a PostgreSQL database, which is basically a way to have a database where the tables within that database are related in some way. So the 5 tables I had in my database were users, posts, events, locations, and private users. And this diagram to the left here is just an ER diagram basically showing how my tables in my database are related. This is just kind of a little way for me to show you how I interact with my database. I put certain commands in and access certain tables. This command says, show me all the tables in my database. And this next command is just saying, select everything from my events table. Just to kind of show how I interact with my database on my computer. So the next part of my backend is my ORM. So basically the ORM serves as this connection between your database and your server. The database has the information and the server is how you get information from the user, but they can't connect with one another and interact with one another by themselves. So they kind of need a liaison between the two. So this ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping, and that's kind of the thing that goes between the two and allows them to communicate. So for this, I use something called Hibernate, which is an object relational mapping tool for the Java programming language. And my ORM consisted of 3 types of code: model code, server code, and gateway code. So here's just an example of each one of those different codes. Basically, the model code goes to the database, directly to the database. The server code calls the functions in my model code. The gateway code calls the functions in my server code, and then the gateway code goes to the server. So the server goes to the gateway code, which goes to the server code, model code, and then to the database. So these 3 types of code files work together to allow my server to interact with my database. So the software I used the language Java for programming my ORM. I used 3 specific softwares called Maven, Tomcat, and Java Jersey. Basically, the 3 of these allowed me to build my files of code and allow myself to deploy them and build this environment so that my code could run. The next part of the backend is the AWS server. So a server is a type of computer or device on a network that manages network resource. So when I was coding this by myself, I was doing it all on my local host server, which is just basically my computer server. But when I wanted to do it for other people to use, I needed a server that other people could connect to. So to do that, I used Amazon Web Services, which basically allowed my user to run my applications in the cloud to host dynamic websites. The language of this was also Java, and And I also use Tomcat to deploy my code to Amazon. So here's just an example of on Amazon, what my application looks like. Here it is on the app, and here's how I upload and deploy it. So that's all the back end. So for the front end, you have the user interface. So the main software that I used for my user interface was called Angular. And this is a platform for building mobile and desktop web applications. So basically, Angular connects to the server to send and receive information from the database. The two languages I used for this were JavaScript and TypeScript. So here's just kind of an example of my Angular code. To the left, I have all the files, and then to the right, I just have examples of certain TypeScript files and HTML files that I had behind my user interface, just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like when I'm coding. So now that I've kind of explained the back end and the front end, how exactly do they interact with each other? So the back end and the front end interact because the front end sends HTTP calls to the back end. So HTTP calls are designed to enable communications between clients and servers, clients being your user interface and servers being the back end. These requests are sent on port 80, and the two HTTP methods I used in this app were get and post. So basically get says, get this information from the database, like all users or something like that, and post says, post this information to the database, like creating a new user. So here's two examples of my HTTP posts, post calls and get calls in Angular and my ORM. So to the left, you have this post call in Angular, basically just saying, this is a post call, here's the username, here's the password this person enters in, add that to the database. And this over here is my example in my ORM, and this is just saying, get all the users from the database. So here's that picture again, kind of to reiterate my whole application, all the parts of my application. So to debug the application, debugging is basically just testing, making sure everything works. I use JUnit tests for my Java code, which are basically these repeatable tests you can keep running and calling and making sure they work. And for my Angular, my user interface, I use something called localhost 4200, which is where I tested that my application worked online. For my application security, obviously, anytime you have users logging into an application, you need security. So I use something called a hash map, which basically logs in. When people log in, it stores their information. So when they log in with their user, it adds their ID to this hash map, and it also generates a token for them. This is an example token. It's just like a really long string of characters, and it adds that to the hash map so that whenever someone is doing something within the application, their token is used instead of their ID, because it's a lot harder to hack something like this than it is someone's user ID, which could be like 3. So this token is passed in as an authorization header to every function of my application, so to ensure that that person is actually a valid user. So here's two examples of this in my code. This is an intercept I have in my Angular code, which basically says every time someone makes an HTTP call, add their token to that call. And over here, this is an example in the ORM. This is a create user call, and this is saying this authorization header is a string. I'm passing that in as a token. Basically, it says, ensure that this token is in my hash map. If it's not, don't let them do this code. So it's basically saying every time someone tries to do something, make sure that they're a valid user who's logged in, and if they're not, don't let them do it. So I'm just going to show you kind of a demonstration video of my application, how it's used and how users interact with it, and the functionality behind it.
Okay, so when you first open the app, you're brought to the home page, which shows all the public events happening on campus. So if you click on one of these events, this will bring you to the event details page for that event, which shows the event name, the event date, the event time, the location, and then any posts made about this event by other users. So if you click on that location button, this will show you where exactly on campus that event is located if you were unfamiliar with the campus. So if you come back to home, you can click on another event to view that event details page. Here's the name, the date, the time, the location, and then here's a post created about this event by another user to promote the event. So if I click on this location button, that shows me where exactly Spangela Parlor is located on campus. So now if I come to the campus map tab, this shows me where exactly events are located on campus right now. So every red dot represents an event that was created in that location. So if I click on one of these red dots, that should show me the event that is occurring at that location. So if I click on one of these red dots, like this red dot at the gym, that should show me what event is happening at the gym. So when I do that, it brings me here and shows me the volleyball game is happening at the gym. And here are 2 posts made about that event. The campus map is important because it allows students to come on here and just see quickly, okay, here's where events are happening on campus. And if I want to click on them, I can see what exactly is happening there. So the next tab is the discussions tab. So the discussions tab allows you to create private discussions about academics or other things with other students. So you can't view your discussions unless you're logged in. The menu tab shows exactly what's on the CAF meal schedule for the week. This is important for students so that we can see what exactly is on the menu and decide whether or not we want to come to the CAF to eat. So to view the other capabilities of the application, you need to log in. The purpose of having a logged in and not logged in version is so that students can come on quickly, see exactly what events are occurring on campus, see where they are quickly without having to log in, but we also can log in if we want to create events ourselves or create private discussions. So I'm just going to log in. Now that I've logged in, you can see I can now create a public event. So I'm going to create one here called basketball game with the date of the 10th and the location at the gym. So I'm going to create an event and see they're populated right there. I'm going to click on it. Now you can see there's the name, the photo, the date, time, the location, and then I can now also create posts about this event. So I'm going to create a post just saying, come to the game. And when I click create post, that's going to populate that right here onto the page. Now if I click on the location button, that's going to bring me to the gym location as well on the campus map. But if I come to the campus map tab, you can see there are now 2 dots on the gym, showing that the event that I just created is located on the gym. So if I click on that red dot, it should bring me to the basketball game, which it does. So you can see that every single time you create an event with a location, that event is populated on the campus map. So now I can go to my discussions and I can see them because I'm logged in. So I'm going to come to this Basement Trader Club discussion. There's the date and the time, the location, and here are the other users that are in that discussion with me. So if I want to respond to this discussion, send a message to these other users, I'm just going to say, hi, everyone, and send that to this discussion. So now those other users can see that message that I sent to them. If I want to create a discussion, I come down here, create a title. I'm just going to make this a math test for the 10th as well, and at the library. And now I'm going to add users. So I'm going to add Jose, and I'm going to create that discussion. So now you can see here, there's the math test group. I'm going to click on it. There's the title, a generated photo, the date, the time, the location, and then you can see that Jose is the other user in this discussion with me. The menu is the same as it was logged in versus not logged in. So the homepage, you can create events, you can view all public events. The campus map, you can see exactly where all these events are occurring, and you can click on the dots to see what that event is. Discussions, you can create private discussions with other users. And the menu, you can see what exactly is on the schedule for the week. And that is it.
Okay, so that's just my demonstration video kind of showing you what my application does. Hopefully that gives you a good understanding. So for my overall application, I had over 3,000 lines of code. I would say this was a successful implementation because all the requirements that I set at the beginning, the functionality that I wanted to have, I was able to have. For future work, I think I would want to make this look a little more user-friendly. It's hard when you're trying to do just functionality. So user-friendly, kind of add some more things in that, and then also just add more functionality to it, whatever people would want. So that is it. I want to say thank you to Dr. Cornely. He's been with us through all of this, so thank you to Dr. Cornely, my Uncle DG for helping me understand some stuff about software, and the support of all my family and friends. Does anybody have any questions?
Katie, thank you. It was quite impressive. I don't know if you've seen, but there is a question for you in the Q&A here, asking about uploads being posted in real time. And it appears that the answer to that question is yes. But the discussion post, everything is happening, can happen live?
Yes, yeah, all the discussion posts are that's all live real time. It makes like a timestamp, it says, of the time that you made that. So all of it is real time. This is just a video that I made before for my other senior presentation. So that was real time for that, but I just use the same recording. But yes, it's all real time.
Sure, yeah. This is, this is where my utter ignorance of these things starts to come in. There are existing calendars, right, that exist on our website, and there are other kinds of schedules. I mean, there are class schedules and Canvas calendars and things of that nature that represent other kinds of commitments that students have. Have you thought about, or do you know what it would take to integrate those other kinds of calendars and existing databases of schedules into your application? And have you thought about that at all?
I haven't thought about that. No, that's actually very interesting. And that is like a very good idea. I don't think I personally would be able to do that. I think that would take someone who knew a lot about the database and the integration of a system that already exists, because I know all about mine, but integrating two different systems, depending on if their database is different software, that could be a lot of work, but it's something that I'm sure could be done.
Yeah. Probably as a faculty member, I would really like for the app to incorporate, students' homework assignments and all of that.
Yes.
I'm sure that's not where your primary focus was. Yeah.
Not quite, but that's okay. Functionality.
There's allowed to be some difference of views about these things. Are there other members of the audience who have other questions for Katie, things that you'd be interested in hearing more about? I guess, Katie, somebody will ask, or should be asking. You said, I mean, the app has succeeded. Have you deployed it with multiple users? Is it functional and downloadable?
Yeah, I've had some family and friends try to use it, and I've also used it. The only thing for me, like, I wouldn't want to, there's some things like in the user interface, as I said, that I would want to like make look better, and just for time purposes of the senior project, you can't really do it all. So if I was gonna like have multiple people use it, I'd want to fix a few things first, but sure. Yes, it is usable.
Yeah. And does student government and the student development office, do they know that you've created this thing?
I don't know. I'll have to
ask
him.
That would seem like something that you should do. Yeah. I'm just scrolling through the list of participants to see if we've got anybody here that I don't think so, but yeah. Good.
Alrighty. Thank you so much.
Yes. Oh, Calvin just popped in with a question. Actually, he's asking this to both of you. In terms of responsive design for your applications, so have you integrated responsive design there, or is it solely used as a mobile app format? What have you thought about or done in those areas?
Mine could be used as a mobile app or as a web application. So mine has that dual purpose, but yeah, I guess that's what I would say.
For me, I just created it on like iOS for now.
Yep.
So more work will be done so that I can deploy it on Android and website.
Great. All right. Well, my thanks to both of you and to those of you who are in the audience who've been with us this afternoon for this session. Thanks everybody for joining us. And the next session coming up immediately after this, I forgot I was supposed to do my job and share that information with all of you. Our next session begins at 2:30 this afternoon, and you can see there that we have 3 papers from Mac Mills, Marcy Zaccardi, and from Professor Tara Brooke Watkins in the Theater for Social Justice program. So as always, that'll be a separate webinar. So if you'd like to join, you'll, when this one concludes, go back to the Academic Symposium Canvas site, and you should be able to jump in from there. Thanks again, Katie, Claire, to all of you for joining us this afternoon, and have an excellent day.